Today we're going to learn how to do a bank reconciliation. A bank reconciliation is basically a comparison. It's a comparison between your records, which are in your cash T account or your cash ledger, and the bank's records. You know what's in the bank's records because they're going to send you a bank statement every month. So what your records are going to show are all your cash receipts and payments during the month. But the bank is going to show all of the deposits and checks that have cleared at the bank and other items such as security deposits and automatic payments. If you think about it, neither record is really complete. The bank has done things you don't know about, you have done things that the bank doesn't know about, so both ending balances are incorrect. Let's take a look at both sides. First of all, you're going to show items that the bank does not show. Basically, there are only two categories of this: deposits in transit and outstanding checks. Both of them are just basically timing issues. You have made the deposit on one day and the bank shows it a few days later for some timing issues. You have written a check at one day and it's presented for payment at the bank maybe a week or two or maybe even several weeks later. So those are things that are in your ledger that the bank doesn't know about. In order to correct for these items, you're going to show them on the bank side as well, because they are going to be presented for payment very soon. So they are good transactions that need to be shown on both sides. Now, on the other side, the bank is going to show items that you don't show. So they're going to show service charges. They're going to show NSF checks. NSF checks are checks that you have deposited that you've received from other people, and those checks are no good. NSF stands for non-sufficient funds. So what happens is you show a deposit, but the bank doesn't show a deposit because it's been rejected. The bank shows a deposit and then takes the money back out. So you have to subtract that on your side as well. Other items that the bank shows that you do not show would be some automatic deposits and payments. Since these are also good transactions, they need to be shown on both sides, so all of those items need to be shown on the book side as well, and also journalized and posted to the cash T account. Now, errors and omissions can happen on both sides, so if we have errors, just correct the side that is in error. If it's a book error, correct the books. If it's a bank error, correct the bank side. But if there's a bank error, you also have to notify the bank. So the whole goal of a bank reconciliation is when all of the different items have been accounted for, the book and bank balances should match. That becomes your true cash balance. That becomes the amount of cash that is going to be shown on the balance sheet, and that is really how much money you have available to spend. So, to demonstrate the bank reconciliation process, we're going to take a look at problem 8-5A from your book. When we take a look at problem 8-5A, on the left hand side over here we see all of the things in our cash ledger. So over here we see the beginning balance for June, per our account $9,317.40. Here are all the deposits that we show in our cash ledger, all of the cash receipts, and here are all of the checks written, all of the payments that we show in our cash ledger. This is the total of all of the deposits per our books. This is the total of all the checks written per our books. In this box over here is our bank statement. So at the beginning of May, we started with a balance of $9,447.20. The bank shows these total deposits. MS stands for miscellaneous collection. Bank shows those total deposits, $8,691.77. The bank shows this many withdrawals and also other payments as well, $8,014.37. We see the $3,370 miscellaneous items over there, and the bank shows an ending balance of $13,494.60. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to calculate our ledger balance as of the end of the month. So what we're going to do is we're going to add the total deposits, 9,524 494.16. We're going to subtract out the checks written. So when we take our beginning balance as of June 1st of 931740 and the deposits per the books of 9524.16, subtract out the checks written of 8359.66 at the end of June, our ledger shows that we have a balance of $10,481.90. The bank shows we have $13,494.60. Now don't think that our true balance is somewhere in between the two. We could have a $10,000 outstanding check, or we could have a $10,000 outstanding deposit. So the true balance that we have available to spend could be very, very different. One final thing that we're going to need is we need last month's bank reconciliation. All of the things on the book side have already been shown in our statement, but now we have to make sure that the deposits in transit from last month, that is something we showed in May that the bank didn't show, and here are all of the checks that we wrote in May that the bank didn't show. We have to make sure that all of those have cleared. So what we're going to do as of June 30th is take a look at our bank balance. Our bank says we have $13,494.60. Then we take a look at our book balance. The book said we have $10,481.90, and we have to figure out what is actually the true bank balance. So now we're in a search for discrepancies. So basically a discrepancy is everything that doesn't match. So if we tick off everything that does match, we'll wind up with everything that doesn't match. So last month we showed a deposit of $690.25, and this month on the bank statement the bank shows a deposit of $690.25. Even though they're in two separate months, we show it and the bank shows it, so it's not a reconciling item. So I'm going to note all of the things in yellow that do in fact match, so that $690.25 deposit is not a reconciling item. Now let's match up the deposits per our cash account with the deposits per the bank. 108050 matches up with 108050, so we can tick those off. 85417 matches up with 85417, so we can tick those off. Here we have 845 and we have 840.50. Well, in that case we have a discrepancy. The amounts do not match. What we would do in real life is go to the deposit ticket, and the deposit ticket would show the correct amount. We're going to assume that the bank is correct in all of these, so I'm just going to put a box around that to note that that is a reconciling item, and I am going to have to deal with that later. 896.61 matches up to 896.61. 882.95 matches up to 882.95. Note you have to be very, very careful because it's very easy to overlook digits reversed or some kind of other error. 1607.64. 1606.74. It looks like someone got dyslexic, so we're going to mark that off with a little box that those are discrepancies as well. 897.34 matches up with 897.34. And 942.71 matches up with 942.71. So we see over here that on the bank side we have two things that are boxed up, which are errors. Our bookkeeper is not very good and has messed up two of the amounts of the deposits, so we have two errors that we need to correct on our books. We have a deposit in transit. It is our last deposit at the end of the month, which will probably be shown by the bank in July. That's going to be added to the bank side. And then we have two deposits over here, the miscellaneous deposits, that are not shown in our books. So as a result of looking at the deposits, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to add the deposit in transit to the book side. 1517.24. So we've now taken care of that item. Now we have to take care of the two miscellaneous deposits. Those have to be added to the book balance because the bank is showing those increasing the bank balance. They're good deposits, but we're not showing them. So we have our miscellaneous deposit. And that looks like also the interest earned on that deposit. So we've now dealt with the 3,500 and the 210. They were on the bank statement for June, and now they're on our bank reconciliation. Now we're going to have to deal with the two errors. So the first thing that we're going to do with the errors is we're going to take the difference between the two numbers. So for error number 1, what we're going to do is we're going to take 845 minus 840.5 and we're going to notice that for error number 1 we have a $4.50 adjustment. So because the bank is right, we're going to have to adjust the books by $4.50, which is the difference between the two. Well, we showed a deposit of $845. The correct amount should have been $840.5. We're supposed to assume the bank is correct in all items. So what we did was we showed too much of a deposit. So in order to correct that, we're going to have to take that away. So if we take the 845 and subtract the 450, we basically show the correct amount of 840.5. So I'm going to subtract the amount for incorrect deposit number 1. And I'm going to subtract out $4.50. Now we're going to take a look at error number 2. So we're going to do the same thing with error number 2. We're just going to take the difference between the two numbers. So I'm going to take 1607.64 and I'm going to subtract 1606.74. Sorry, this is taking so long. And there we have a big old 90-cent error. So we show a deposit of 1607. The amount should be 1606. So it looks like we again have to subtract 90 cents. Now I will tell you from personal experience that it's very easy to misanalyze these and to add instead of subtract. If you wind up doing that, if you add instead of subtract, you'll be off double that number. So if I should have added 450 instead of subtracting 450 here, I would not reconcile by $9. So that's an easy way to check if you don't wind up reconciling. So we've now dealt with this error, And we've now dealt with this error. So everything is yellowed out and accounted for. Now we're going to go on to the checks. So once again, we're going to match the checks that we have written to the checks that have cleared on the bank statement. The first thing that we need to do is take a look at the outstanding checks that we had as of the end of May and make sure they settled in June. So in May, we wrote check number 731, 162.15, and the bank shows check number 731 settling for 162.15. So they match in number and amount. Very important to match the numbers and the amounts because you may have two checks for the same amount. The next open one is 736 for 345.95, matches 736, 345.95. So we showed it in May, bank showed it in June, both of us show it. Very nice. The next one we have is check number 738. We see here that these checks on the bank statement are in numerical order. Check number 738 has not settled, so that is still an outstanding check. That is going to be subtracted from the bank balance because we've already subtracted it and the bank is going to have to pay it soon. It is a good check. We want to make sure that that's subtracted. Now we take a look at 739, 60.55, matches up with 60.55, so we can check off those two. Now we're just going to go one by one down the checks. 740, 237.50, matches 740, 237.50. 741, 495.15, matches 495.15. 742, 501.90, and 742, 501.90. Those match. We can tick those off. 743, 671.3 matches 743, 671.3. And sorry, there really isn't a shortcut to this. Even if you do this on a computer, you have to check off, all of the checks that have settled one by one. 741, 560.88. 744, 506.88. Well, when you get your bank statement back, you get either your checks that you've written or a photocopy of the checks that you have written. And once again, we're supposed to assume that the bank is correct in all of this. So we're going to have to take a look at this bookkeeper because he has made quite a few mistakes. Now we take a look at check number 745, 117.25, matches with the bank. So we can check those off. 746, 298.66, 298.66. We take a look. Check number 747 is void, and we want to make sure that check number 747 is not on our bank statement, because that's a way that a bookkeeper can steal money, is write a check to his or her self and then take it basically out of the bank statement before you see it. So you have to make sure that those voided checks are written and verified that they're not settled on the bank statement. 748, 450.90 matches to 450.90, so we can tick those off. 749, 640.13, 640.13, we can tick those off. 750, 276.77, matches with 750, 276.77. 751, 299.37, that matches as well, so we can tick those off. 752, 537.01, matches, so we can tick those off. 380.95, 753 matches, so we can tick those off. 449.75 matches up to 449.75. Check number 754. 755, 272.75 matches. Check number 756, 113.95 has not settled at the bank. That is going to be an outstanding check. Check number 757, 407.95. Amounts and check numbers match, so we can tick those off. We both have the same one. $758 has not yet settled at the bank. That is an outstanding check. $759, $901.50 matches up with $759, $901.50. And $760, $486.39 has not settled at the bank, so that is also an outstanding item that needs to be dealt with. Finally, we can see on the bank statement that we have the one error that we need to take care of, but we have two other items that we also need to take care of: the service charge and the NSF check. So let's get started. On the bank side, we're going to subtract all of our outstanding checks. And I would advise you to write the numbers. So the first outstanding check that we have is number 738. Remember from last month, that isn't yellowed out. And we want to subtract the $251.40. Now we can note that we have added that one to the bank reconciliation, so we can tick off and make sure that everything's dealt with. Then we have 3 from June, number 756. And that amount is for $113.95. We have number 758, and that amount is for $259.60. And finally we have number 760, and that amount is for $486.39. So all of our outstanding checks have now been dealt with. So we can see here that we only have a few items that are boxed that are not colored in. So we have the error in the check. We wrote that a check was for $560 and the correct amount is $506. So in this case we actually subtracted too much and want to add back from the book balance. So we do the same thing with the error in the check. We're going to take the difference between $560.88 and $506.88, is $54. So we have to adjust the book balance by $54. So we either have to add or subtract the $54. Well, in this case we subtracted too much. The bank subtracted the right amount of $506. We subtracted $560. We subtracted too much. So to correct it we have to add back the $54. So we have our incorrect check, number 744, and we add back our $54. Once we've done that, delete that. Once we've done that, we've taken care of that, and we've taken care of that. So now we only have two items that were shown on the bank statement, so they're already shown in the bank balance. We just have to show them in the book balance. That is our $40 service charge, and we want to subtract that from the book balance because the bank shows us paying that. And we have our $300 NSF check that we need to subtract because we showed it as a deposit, but it was not a good deposit. So we need to subtract it out of the book balance. So I've taken care of that, and I've taken care of that. So you're going to notice now that everything on the bank statement is yellowed out, and everything in the cash account is also yellowed out except for the voided check. So I believe that I've dealt with all of the items, and I am now ready to check and see whether I reconcile. So what I'm going to do here is calculate an adjusted bank balance. And once again, I do that by taking the bank balance per the bank statement, the ending balance, not the beginning balance, adding in the deposits in transit, and subtracting out the outstanding checks. So, I reconciled, did that incorrectly. We should have started from the beginning, all the way down. And our adjusted bank balance is $13,900.50. Now we're going to do exactly the same thing with the books. So we're going to calculate an adjusted book balance. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the book balance as of June 30th, that ending balance, 10,481.90, not our beginning balance, but the ending balance, and then add or subtract in the errors and all the things that the bank showed that we didn't show. So we add that up right from the beginning, and we come down to 13,900.5. So we notice that 13,900.5 and 13,900.5 matches, so we've done our bank reconciliation correctly, and now all we have to do is journalize each one of these to add them into the T account. Okay, so now we have learned how to do a bank reconciliation and how to balance between the adjusted bank balance and the adjusted book balance.